just spoke to you all, but thank you so much for coming to Imaginate's Industry Series on our last day. I want to thank the generous support of CBC and CBC Docs for our Industry Series overall presented for 2017. My name is Daniel Northway Frank. I'm the Industry Director here at the festival. We've been having a great Industry Series and a great festival so far. We acknowledge the Dish with One Spoon Treaty and give thanks to Mississaugas of the new credit, the Haudenosaunee and the Huron-Wendat for the privilege of working and living on their territory. So thank you. We're happy to present Maximizing Opportunity for online short and feature film exhibition, and I'd like to thank our generous support for this panel's presenter, Telefilm Canada. As you can see from the clip, they're celebrating 50 years, which is pretty incredible, and some really amazing advancements in supporting Indigenous content creators in the last couple of years. So thank you for them. And just in general, amazing supporters of Imaginative, France, my bestie. And I just wanted to invite, Francesca Asinelli, Director, National Promotion Communications from Telefilm, to come up and say a couple words before we start.
Hi everybody, I promise to make it short. For those of you who don't know who Telefilm Canada are, we are the federal cultural funding agency. We finance Canadian feature film. Our focus is to develop, finance, and promote the industry, and then we do a bunch of other things. We help certify treaties, we manage the Canada Media Fund, so I feel like we are the touchstone agency because every kind of project, television, film, digital media, all flows through our teams in the 4 different offices across Canada, so that's my government spiel for you. In terms of short content, though we don't finance short content, we do a lot to help support it through, I heard someone talk about Crazy 8, so through Crazy 8, through Picture Start, through different initiatives all across Canada. And then we have, for a number of years, been doing something called Not Short on Talent, where we present Canadian short films and promote them in Cannes, in Berlin, at Clermont-Ferrand, and we partner with Air Canada to actually show shorts on the airwaves. But for Telefilm in particular right now, in a landscape where people aren't necessarily going to the theaters, digital is an incredibly important conversation for all of us to have. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about what all of you are saying, a lot of pressure now. Digital is the way that we all are consuming. I was just watching Facebook right now. I was waiting for Daniel to start. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm here for the rest of the afternoon, so come find me. I'm happy to talk about Telefilm and what we do. That's it.
Thank you. So now we're happy to present our panel. Where is the digital space providing new opportunities for niche markets and audiences that Indigenous content producers can take advantage of? What are the leading channels and where does your content fit? And how do you speak the language to get in the hand of the decision makers and online? So we have our fantastic speakers today, Penelope Bartlett, offering insights and strategies for short filmmakers, while Stadium Media's Mitch Mallon and his direct connections to all the feature film digital gatekeepers offer contrasting and comparative insights for activating online content distribution and exhibition for producers. Leading our discussion today is Brenton Hammond, a filmmaker of Mi'kmaq, Ojibwe, and Scottish ancestry, based in Gaspaquik, Mi'kmaq in Nova Scotia. I asked for phonetic, I tried that. His films focus on themes of community, culture, and tradition with a focus on Two-Spirit identity. His films are screened at festivals across the world, including TIFF, Inside Out, Atlantic Film Festival, Frameline, Red Nation Film Festival, and Dream Speakers. He's a fellow at the Praxis Center for Screenwriters, Outfest Screenwriting Lab, as well as an alumnus of the Canadian Film Centre's Screenwriting Lab. So I'd like to invite Brenton and our panelists to come up and speak and talk about what they do. Thanks.
Far away, come closer. Get over here. We're nice people.
Maybe.
It's yours to judge.
casual world, friends. So cool. Gwe Hopchalasi, hello and welcome. Ndaloisin Brett Hannum, Leawi Kispukwit Magi. My name is Brett Hannum. I'm a filmmaker from Kispukwit in Mi'kmaq Territory in Nova Scotia. Or rather, Nova Scotia is in Mi'kmaq Territory. Happy to be here today to be talking to these lovely people about many lovely things. So I, as per the intro, I've been making short films for many years. I made a feature film 2 years ago, and I've been going through the wonderful process called distribution, and learning all sorts of wonderful things. So I have lots of burning questions. I'm sure you all have lots of burning questions, and we're going to apply them liberally to our guests here. So just a quick rundown of how things will work is I'm going to be talking to Penelope specifically about short film, mostly short film. There's obviously some crossover and a little bit of overlap, just a touch. And then I'll be talking to Mitch about the big frightening world of feature films, and he's going to reassure us that everything's going to be okay.
Short up.
All right, so just to kick it off, Penelope, why? I know you work with Filmstruck, Criterion, and I know that it's a growing platform that maybe is not available in Canada.
It's hopefully coming soon.
Excellent. So can you give us a rundown of how the process works for you?
Sure. I guess just to start, maybe I'll just give a little bit of background about sort of how I came to be working for Filmstruck. I worked in film festival programming for about 10 years, started off programming the Glasgow Short Film Festival in Scotland, and then moved to the United States and worked in short film programming for the Chicago International Film Festival. I also worked for a year as the director of programming for the Palm Springs Short Film Festival, which is the largest, I believe, short film festival in the United States. Shows about 300 short films every June. So I really come from a background of film festival programming, and it's been interesting for me to see the transition from the days where we would freak out if a short was online and we would contact the filmmaker and tell them to take it down immediately, to now where we really don't mind, and we sort of realize that that's a totally viable way for short filmmakers to distribute their work, and we're fine with the film being online really at any point, including when it's playing at our festival. So from the background of short film programming, I then started to work for the Short of the Week, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. It's an online platform for short films that's now more kind of short of the day. It shows a new short film every day, along with a nice piece of editorial, and promotes that to all of its social media networks. And then kind of through that, I discovered that Criterion was launching its own streaming service. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Criterion, distributor of art house films, started as Janus Films in the 50s and 60s, was one of the first distributors to bring people like Fellini and Bergman to United States audiences. Transitioned in the 90s into the DVD, Blu-ray market, and then of course now into streaming. Their content was for a long time available through Hulu, but about a year ago they partnered up with Turner Classic Movies and decided to launch the ultimate streaming service for cinephiles, fans of art house and foreign films and independent cinema. So that launched last November and is currently only available in the United States, but is hopefully going to be rolling out to other territories soon. And my role there is, I guess, sort of curating the platform. So we've taken an approach that's almost like having our own online repertory theater. So we actually do a weekly double feature. We do a weekly shortened feature. We do some thematic programming, so director retrospectives or, just films that are grouped together around a common theme or a film movement. We do a program called Observations on Film Art, which is 10-minute episodic. We take a film and sort of break it down. It's an academic called David Bordwell, who's at the University of Madison, Wisconsin, and wrote a textbook that is kind of like the go-to for film students all over the world. And he actually takes these films and sort of breaks them down in these 10-minute episodes. So it's almost like going to film school for free for 10 minutes. So yeah, that's kind of the basic sort of breakdown of what we do. So I do acquire a small number of short films for our weekly short and feature series. And those are short films that can be at any stage in their life. We've shown short films that are, we own a number of short films. Janice owns a number of short films, but we also acquire short films that are 30, 40 years old, but I also just licensed a short film that won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance last year, so it's very new. And it really just has to pair in some way with a film from our collection. So to have some kind of aesthetic or thematic connection with a feature so that we can present it as a shortened feature. So I am acquiring short films for that. I'm still working with Short of the Week to recommend short films for that platform. So those are kind of the ways that I'm working currently with short films in the online space.
So you travel the globe hunting down short filmmakers, or do people send you films? Like how does it work finding the films?
Yeah. It's really a mixture. I have just a mental sort of database of every short that I've ever seen and loved from the last 10 years. So some of those have just been films that I've gone after, where maybe I programmed that film at a festival 5 years ago and I'm still in contact with the filmmaker. So some of those have just been from that. But then I also travel to lots of festivals. I wish I'd traveled the globe. I traveled the United States and a little bit of Europe.
Small steps. Small steps.
And if I can't go to a festival, I try to reach out to the programmer. The short film, the programming world, and especially the short film programming world, is very small and very kind of close-knit. We all know each other. So if I don't know the programmer, I usually know someone who knows the programmer. So I'll hopefully reach out to the programmer, and big programmers are getting really good about sharing the films that show at their festivals. So usually after a festival, you can reach out and ask for links to the films, which I think programmers are realizing is a great way to actually help the filmmakers get their films out there. And then I watch films online. I watch films through Short of the Week because there are many other programmers working there, so I don't program everything myself. So I'll check out what they've shown in any given week. I'll check out Vimeo staff picks. So yeah, I'm definitely also taking advantage of the myriad of online distribution as well.
Great. So then, just to kind of like revisit that and explore your relationship, I think at the beginning, is it mostly with programmers, or is it directly with filmmakers, or does it start with programmers and then transition into filmmakers? Like, what's that relationship like?
I think it's a mix. If the film has been recommended to me through a programmer, I usually will go to the programmer first, just because I want to be respectful of that programmer's relationship with that filmmaker, and I don't want to come completely out of the blue to the filmmaker if they maybe didn't even know that their film is being shared with me. So in those cases, I'll usually go through the person who provided the film in the first instance, and then they can usually make an introduction, and it's just a little bit more of an elegant way to contact the person than just out of the blue.
Less stalkerish.
Exactly. Yeah. I love stalking filmmakers, though. I stalk talented filmmakers all the time.
Penelope, could you just Just share how to get on the radar of Vimeo Staff Pick and also Short of the Week.
Short of the Week is open for submissions, so you can submit that way. You can also reach out to the programmers. You can reach out to me if you want to come and see me after this talk. I can give you my card. And there is, as I've explained to a few filmmakers that I've spoken to here, kind of an informal relationship between Vimeo Staff Picks and Short of the Week. It's not an official affiliation, but there's some personnel crossover. We're very aware of what each other are doing. So Vimeo do tend to watch everything that goes up on Short of the Week and vice versa. And there's a sort of, if something's on Short of the Week, it's pre-vetted. Vimeo know it's going to be good and the other way around. So just the likelihood of getting a staff pick or a Short of the Week, if you have one, is a little bit more likely, I guess I would say.
That's good to know. It's a good question.
It's definitely not a guarantee though, because I think there's slight differences in the types of films that Short of the Week pick and the staff pick. Staff pick do a little bit more branded content. They do a little bit more kind of micro pieces, or Short of the Week tends to be a little bit more narrative, longer form.
So as far as the world of online distribution goes, for short filmmakers, do you have any like upfront advice about what filmmakers should be doing before they begin to even make the shorts, or in the process of making the shorts? Because I know as a short filmmaker years ago, I was like, you make the film and you don't really worry about what happens later, and then that was an awful lesson to learn.
Then you don't make any more films.
Yes, then you fall down the hole. So do you have any like insight into like what filmmakers can be doing to improve their chances, or to like ensure a life for their film?
Yeah, I'm always a little bit wary about answering this question, because I do think the first thing that you should do is make the film that you want to make. So don't make your film for anyone else. But at the same time, yes, of course you should be thinking, who wants to see this film? Who is my audience? I talked yesterday with some filmmakers about the value of doing a crowdfunding campaign, which can be that you actually start to build your audience early on. So you're marketing your film before your film even exists and finding your community. And then as you make your film, maybe think about, here's an interesting story that happened during the production. Take some photos of the production, sort of like build a story around the making of the film that you can then use to be kind of compelling ancillary content when you decide to release the film.
So lots of behind the scenes and content, like behind the scenes content, basically.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at, a Criterion release, for example, people love the supplements almost as much as they love the film. So I think if you can, just build a story around your release. It just gives you that little bit more of an edge when you put it online, and some marketing materials you can share, and maybe if you want to reach out to press, you have like a ready-made story for them to tell. Just sort of helping people find things that are interesting about your story.
The story of the story.
Exactly.
But try to get your cast committed to go as long as the film is out there as well.
Oh yeah, that's a very good
Didn't
point.
forget about that. Get the cast to be committed to the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Harness your cast and your crew and make them passionate ambassadors for your project as well.
And lots of casts have social media presence now, so it's like, you can get them on board to be promoting and pushing things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's anyone, out in the world who is in some way connected to your film, and happens to have a huge social media following, reach out to those people, try and get them to be advocates for your film as well.
What is the longest your short films can be to qualify for consideration?
For Short of the Week, I believe it's officially under 40 minutes, I think. I'm not totally sure. That's certainly what it was at most of the festivals that I worked for. That said, the longer it is over 20 minutes, the harder it is to program, as I'm sure all filmmakers have realized. I love like long form work and mid-length work, but it's definitely challenging to program. Actually, there's quite a lot of it here, which I was very excited to see. There's a lot of programs that have maybe like 3 sort of mid-length films, which is great. And I think some festivals do a really good job of programming those, but I know a lot of festivals that definitely prefer their shorts to be like the 15-minute mark or under. And I think in the online space, sadly, because the online space really should be freeing because you don't have a preordained schedule, I think that shorter films tend to play better or tend to be considered to play better.
So do you have a, just to get an idea of what happens after you acquire a short film? Like, does the relationship with that filmmaker continue? Do you have like your eye on them, or are they cast aside?
No, definitely, and this is what I kind of meant when I was joking about stalking filmmakers, is I very much, and I think every programmer does this because programmers are people who nurture talent, and once you discover a filmmaker whose work you really love, you will absolutely follow that filmmaker, see what they're doing next, whether it's more shorts or, I'm always really excited when a filmmaker whose shorts I've loved has their first feature. That's just such an exciting moment for me to see that feature and see that vision, in the long form. And I think filmmakers should also, play their part in that and try and stay in touch with the festivals, send updates. If you're traveling around the festival circuit and you see that a programmer from a festival that you played at is there, try and say hi. And it can also serve in your favor when you're submitting your next film and you reach out to them, because I think a lot of festivals will give waivers to alums. It doesn't, of course, just because your film played at one festival doesn't mean that your next film will, but the more that you can nurture those relationships, I think it will stand you in good stead in the long run.
But it is about relationships. It's not just the anonymous box that you submit your films to online through whatever service. It's about reaching out and having those relationships and going to festivals and talking to people face to face.
Can I just, Penelope had some great advice around signing non-exclusive distribution. Is there any other advice, because once you've got a short film out there that's getting into festivals, you do get approaches around distribution deals. Is there any other advice around?
Yeah, so we talked yesterday in a one-on-one meeting, and I was talking about short film distribution deals and how I would recommend being wary of anything that requires exclusivity unless it's, really paying you a lot of money. Because most of the short film deals that I'm familiar with through distributors that can be trusted will give you non-exclusive rights or ask for non-exclusive rights so that you can then continue to exploit your film. The short films that I acquire for Filmstruck, I'm fine with them being publicly available online as well. We're presenting them in a new context to a different audience who might not actually watch shorts online at all. So I don't see that as competition, and I also just don't feel that it's fair to limit the opportunities that a filmmaker has to distribute their short when there's so few opportunities to distribute and especially to monetize your short. I'd also say if a distributor approaches you, really try and find other filmmakers who have worked with that distributor. Ask that distributor to maybe connect you with other filmmakers who have, and just ask them about the experience and how it was, rather than just like signing something blind.
So just so everyone is on the same page, like an exclusive versus a non-exclusive agreement. An exclusive agreement means you're only working with that distributor. Like you're not allowed. You sign a contract that means you're only working with them, and you can only distribute through their channels.
That's only one way to look at it.
Well, that's a quick rundown, but
No, because there's exclusive based upon platforms you're delivering to.
Yeah,
So that's a hybrid of what you look at as well.
But as a general kind of idea. If you're signing a non-exclusive, you're just throwing the fire here.
Well, but I would also say that, I mean, I think this picture completely changes when we shift to what Mitch is going to be talking about. And, you know, there are exclusive Netflix deals that I think can be very lucrative for filmmakers for features. I'm kind of talking specifically about shorts.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that we, terminology-wise, everyone got what was going on. So I think that's good. Unless there's any other secret advice or questions, yes?
I'm unclear, like, does Film Shark pay people to show their work, or how does that work?
For the short films that we're licensing, yes, we do pay a one-off licensing fee. And that's for a non-exclusive deal, so you can still continue to show your film on other platforms.
So you could put it up on YouTube.
Or your website?
Or your website, yeah. Or anywhere. Yes?
I was just wondering, with your experience of watching a lot of short films, what makes a good film for you?
Ooh.
Sorry, it's a big question, it's still a bit early.
Well, again, I think that that often is also a question of context, and a film that will play really well online is not necessarily a film that, I mean, sometimes it is, but there's a difference between a film that plays really well online and then a film that maybe is really perfect for a specific program that you're putting together for a specific festival. And with every festival that I worked for, I sort of had like a different, you know, way of looking at things, because there would usually be the audience as well would be different. So you're programming for your audience and thinking about them and maybe particular themes or groups that they're interested in. I tend to like shorts that don't explain everything. I like films that leave you kind of wondering at the end. I mean, I guess that's probably the same with features, actually. I guess I'm kind of a visualist, so I like films that are create really beautiful, well-realized aesthetic worlds. And yeah, I mean, I think that you just sort of know a really good short film when you see one where you believe in the characters, where you're kind of immediately taken into a setup, because it's so hard to make a good short film. I think everyone would agree it's almost more unforgiving than making a feature film. So yeah, I think fully realized worlds and something that leaves you thinking about it and wondering about it after you leave the theater or close the window. Or but again, I think context is hugely important as well.
Can I ask just in terms of licensing, because I'm talking about YouTube, who else in the online world is giving license fees that you know of?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I keep bringing up Fandor, which is available in Canada, I think. And Fandor, but I also feel like I'm not super up to date on Fandor, because I know that they've changed their kind of...
Yeah, changing.
Yeah.
In the midst of evolving.
Yeah, and I'd actually love to hear more about that. But they were at one point well known for distributing experimental work, mid-length work, short films, and they would acquire lots of films from festivals, and I think they paid per second viewed or something. They had an interesting model of
Each
reimbursement.
platform has different models
Yeah.
to exploit.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting one, but like I said, I'm not quite sure where they're at right now. There are a couple of others. The New Yorker screening room does a really beautiful job of curating shorts, and I believe they pay fees. The Atlantic just launched a screening room. I believe it's currently short documentaries only. And Field of Vision through POV curates short documentaries, and I believe they pay a fee for those. The platform Nowness. Yeah, those are just a few that come to mind. And Full Screen, filmmaker that I bring up every time I'm on one of these panels, Jim Cummings, who did the film Thunder Road, one-take film, and put it online and really got a lot of traction. And he was then commissioned by Fullscreen to make, I think, like 5 more one-take films. And so that was just kind of an interesting example of a filmmaker doing something very specific really successfully. I mean, it also won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance, so it wasn't like it was just an online thing, but
that helps.
It helps a little bit. But, you know, just sort of, I think the one thing I probably haven't talked about is just how the online space is great for showcasing a specific skill set that you have. So I think animators do really well online, people who have like VFX skills, and in this case, the filmmaker's ability to tell a great story in one take. And also the film has this very kind of interesting blend of like comedy and pathos. And he said that he's been getting a lot of commissions where people are like, can you make another film that's like really sad and really funny too? So yeah, that's just another sort of way that the online space is great.
Do you have any
Of course.
additional?
So we're talking more about the first thing we should go into is how do you make money and how do you define it? Do people understand that? So there are 4 ways to make money within this digital world. You can rent it, which is called internet video on demand or transactional video on demand. So you set a price and you rent it for either 24, 48, 72, depending on the platform. You can buy it like a DVD, EST, electronic sell-through, a specific price that you own it in perpetuity or as long as that platform's around. Then you have SVOD, which is what we're talking about, pretty much a licensing fee, so subscription video on demand, meaning you're getting a fee, sorry, as many people as they can get to watch it. And then you've got ad support video on demand or free on demand. So you can actually have ads inserted within the video itself. So on the short film side, complementing what we were saying was you can also, I know iTunes takes some shorts, Google Play can take some shorts, Amazon takes shorts where you can monetize them, so transactionally you purchase it. And I think the public library is also.
And Vimeo also.
And Vimeo, yeah, so there's other ways besides licensing.
Yeah.
So, you know, the dream is to get a license fee. The reality is probably not.
But it's good to be upfront.
No, just no. Disappointment is.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the takeaway from this is always that it is incredibly difficult to monetize shorts, and that you should use your short film as a tool to leverage your career and open up opportunities.
Yeah, see, that's what I completely agree on. It's a spec. It's a call card. It is, and you want to get it out there as many places as possible. I mean, if they do pick it up, great. But you know, we were talking earlier, Facebook. Put it on Facebook. Put it on Vimeo. Put it on YouTube. Put it on Dailymotion. People aren't familiar with Dailymotion. I mean, there's so many platforms out there. Snap, we're trying to figure out what Snap's doing. We don't know.
Snapchat.
Yeah, 15 seconds. That's short. So there's many places to monetize.
So for you mostly play in the world.
Well, I don't want to do what I do anymore. I want to.
Well,
because her job seems so much nicer than mine.
I mean,
She's looking for product or resigning.
That was my next question. So do you have your eye on shorts as well? Is that like kind of a transition?
Only in the summertime.
Oh well. We're just starting. I'm sure I've seen a few shorts still walking around. So
No shorts. No. No, I do have some friends that have shorts that I want to help out, but it's not my forte now.
So yeah, you're mostly focused on the world of feature films.
Nope, I'm focused on anything that I can bring to a consumer that they'll pay money for. Whether it's a concert, whether it's a TV show, whether it's a feature film, doesn't matter.
Great.
So no, it's not one thing in a bottle. Historically wise, I'm a child of video stores, and I worked in video stores in college and after, and then worked in video distribution in the early days when Blockbuster. Everyone remembers Blockbuster? That was my first account as a salesman, where they had 100 stores worldwide. So I had 5 years of online training with them to understand merchandising, pricing, marketing, all of that. Then I was with the Warner Music Group for 10 years in different capacities. And then I went to Image Entertainment in 2004, started their digital initiative. So before anybody talked about digital, I was thrown into it, almost crying every day, like, I don't know what you're talking about. What's an MPEG? This is what? I have to do what? I don't even know how to make a DVD. So I had to figure that out on the music side and then the video side. And the frustration of seeing all the different contracts coming in and definitions of all of the ways to monetize frustrated me so much that in 2006 I sat with a gentleman at a deli, Arts Deli in Studio City in LA, and I said, this is a horrible business. It is so disruptive. We want to be disruptive, but there's no consistency. It's brutal. I want to have contracts that tell me what to do, but why is this person saying this is EST, this is PVD, this is DTO? I'm like, I don't know what this means. And a light shone in his head, and we started a trade organization called the Digital EMA. And so for years as I was out there, I used to listen to meetings, and I didn't know what anyone said. I'd listen to a word, I'd come back, I'd find a definition, I created a 30-page glossary for myself. We took that glossary, sat with every major studio, all the indies in LA, we curated it one full day, and we published about 130 terms that were blessed by the general counsels of all the studios, and so we published that online for the guidance for everyone in the industry. Just, if you don't know what you're licensing, you can't license. And so that was the first conversation. So we have that, then you have the second part is metadata. You may put your film up, but if you don't know how to actually attract the audience with what's information about the film, you can't do that. So we created a standard metadata format. And then art specs and video format specs, just to make the cost much more conducive to working, because the problem with the industry is it's so expensive. And digital is simple, it's a digital file. It's not manufacturing DVDs and Blu-rays, it's a digital file. So how do you keep the cost reasonable enough for filmmakers to have a chance? So that's what the Digital EMA was about. So that's my intro into this. Then I ran Image Entertainment's digital division for 10 years, which was a wonderful experience. And in 2015, decided to launch my own. And I wanted to just find a product that I liked and people that I like to work with. That was the whole thing. It's like, if I find a filmmaker and there's a connection and I like them and the product is there, then I'm your champion. I'm not a repository. I'm not a place where I just want to throw films out and put them up everywhere. I've had long relationships with all the platforms. iTunes, the day Netflix launched back in 2007, I launched with them, and Hulu and everyone. So I've known everyone for years and years, and I've championed them because literally where we are in digital now is the culmination of what the movie industry has been looking for forever. No inventory. People can get content with no inventory. Whereas the early days of Blockbuster, back in 1989 and 90, Blockbuster tried in New York City to have a system where they would have one copy of a VHS and blanks, and you would go into the store and they would make a copy for you, so they had no inventory. No shrinkage, they didn't want that. And so it just wasn't there. So now we're at that point where, yes, now you can actually have no inventory. So we are really at the heyday of movie making and distribution. But the riddle is, who do you distribute? That's the riddle. And that's the hardest part. Yes, you're in front.
So do you take people at the development stage with new ideas about TV shows and films, or do you want us to come to you only with finished products?
Finished. Yeah. No. As a company progresses, I know I have to get into that mode. But my first mode of operation literally was to work and support my friends in the digital distribution side of the platforms.
Okay.
Because I've known what they do, find the right content for them. Because, I mean, bigger picture is they all have jobs. They want to do a good job for their bosses. My job is to make sure that I bring them good content to make sure they look good.
Okay.
That's it. It's a different mindset than just a pipeline putting things out. To put it out. That is a short-sighted mentality. And everything within this space is more bigger picture. If you're a filmmaker, you create a short, you want to make more films. That's the mentality. When I bring product to platforms, I want to make sure they go, hey, Mitch is here, he's got new stuff for us, this is great. There's a reason behind everything. It's for tomorrow. Not today's over. This is for tomorrow and the next day.
Okay.
So, and the riddle of the industry at the point now is, in the early days it was the U.S. U.S. is still much further ahead than most of the world. It will catch up quickly, and that's because of the bandwidth and the fact of penetration with devices. So this is my opinion of how the U.S. is much further ahead within the digital marketplace. You had the early days where you had a Roku box, when Netflix launched with Roku in the early days, which now Roku is huge. But the penetration of Blu-ray players within the space is what really catapulted the U.S. ahead. Because Blu-ray players were trying to be BD Live, so you had your ancillary that you could go online and watch. Nobody really got into that. But you also had apps on there, and it started subtly training people to go onto an app and a channel. And they would notice it on a phone and everywhere else. And so that year in and year out of people going, oh, I can go to this, I can push a button, I can go to that, I can go to that store, changed the opinion of everybody within the States to go, oh, I can go there, whereas Europe is not there, Asia is not there. Canada is much more progressive, of course, but that was the one thing that catapulted the U.S. further ahead. Not so much the speed, but the ease of access. It just was there. So I look at how the penetration of devices are around the world, and I look at how Netflix has expanded, which is spectacular because it's spreading the word, and now how Amazon is expanding with their Fire Stick and all of that, and you'll have more devices which will make easier use, easier content, which makes it easier for you guys to find ways to monetize your content. The thing about digital is you have your iTunes, your Netflix, your Amazon, your Google Play, you have and they're great, but you also have all these OTT channels. Does everyone know what OTT is? Right. So over the top. Basically, it's an over the top.
Filmstruck is an OTT
They're
channel.
OTT. So, but they tend to look at what people's preferences are, which is wonderful. So if you're horror-centric, there's Shudder and Screenbox and others, so you can go there, and that's an OTT channel, which you pay a separate fee. But now they also can create separate, real, specific channels for people's loves and likes. I know that I was in Estonia last year, and there's a Baltic channel coming, because the Baltic filmmakers have problems getting their stuff out from the festivals. So they're creating a specific channel. Now, the penetration of OTT devices isn't there yet, but that's the first step. So it will be there. And once you find it, now you can start searching short films, feature films, and there's a way. Now, we don't know what the audience is going to be, but there's an opportunity.
We do.
No, but it's not,
world audience.
but you still need the size of audience based upon acquisition, bandwidth, delivery. That's the riddle. Which Filmstruck, it's the same thing. It's like great content. Oh my gosh, I want to be there. How many people? They need to justify all of that back-end expense that people forget.
1.4 billion indigenous people on this planet.
Well, that you have a nice channel. A very nice channel.
So then, as far as finding content, how do you go about finding content? Because I know it differs from how Penelope.
Mine is, I have lots of friends from all the years who've come to me. I also have people that I work with. And then it's also built upon relationships. It is. It's literally, when I meet a new filmmaker, and they'll have a film that I really like, I really preface, I go, this is great, I really love it. If you're looking for a one-off, I'm really not interested. If you're looking to possibly build something with me, because historically, I've seen, if you can get product up on the platforms, that's fine. But if all of a sudden they pop as a filmmaker, they get noticed, like you were saying, and all the platforms start looking at it, and I want to be involved in that whole process of championing all of the content. I've seen it historically where a title pops and then a major SVOD platform goes, oh, we have a new film coming out from this director. I know you have this previous too. And so I want to be part of that evolution with that.
So it's also about building that ongoing relationship.
Oh, everything in the space is relationship. Everywhere you go is relationship. I don't care who you are, religion, race, it doesn't matter. Everyone's the same. We like movies. We like to sit there and watch movies and want an ease of access, ease of use. That's it. So there's, how do I make your life easy? That's all I'm trying to do. And find something. And the best thing of all, that when I worked in video stores years ago, which I always take is, I would go, hey, this Assault on Precinct 13, example. It was a great movie. And you give it to somebody on a Friday, and then Monday they'd be like, oh, I really love that film. I made them have a great time that weekend. And seriously, that's the business we're in. How nice is that? Like, you wake up every day and go, seriously, this is what I do for a living? Really? So you have to be thankful every day that you're able to do this. And that's where it starts. And even though I have a bad day with platforms, it doesn't matter. You know what? I'm still very happy and blessed that I can actually sit with them. They take my call. I have breakfast, coffee, whatever with them. And we talk about movies, TV shows, concerts. How great is that? You talk about films all the time. I'm jealous.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely one of the things that attracts people to becoming programmers is that feeling of people just had a great time for 2 hours and I had something to do with it. And I think as well, like we were just saying, relationships are so important. And so even though we're both enabling people to sit at home on their couch watching films, the relationships are one of the reasons that it's so important to keep coming to film festivals and for film festivals to keep happening and supporting film festivals. And also I think that watching a film with an audience is still absolutely the best way to see a film, and an experience that you can't really replicate at home. So just putting a little plug out there for the film festival world, even though we're both in the streaming space.
No, so also, is everyone familiar with the phrase the long tail? The long tail. You, back in the third row. No, so the long tail is content that is older, which Criterion controls a lot of it, and it's basically, it's not going to blow up and make so much money all immediately, but it will consistently have a steady flow. You'll have an audience. And I'm a big champion in the long tail, forever and ever, because if it's a good film, it's a good film. I look at comedians. So if you're a classic comedian, maybe you're Buddy Hackett, or maybe you're, Jerry Lewis. Well, it's not today's generation, but if you're funny, you're funny. I don't care. If you're funny, you're funny, and you will find your audience. I have classic TV shows that people are like, why would you look at? They're good shows. They're wholesome, good shows that just find their audience. Yeah, they're not going to do The Walking Dead, but I don't need to. They have a found audience that comes in and week out and gives great reaction, and I get, texts about what's going on, social media interaction, and you know what? The actors are around. I tell them about it. It's content. There's good content. The hard part is trying to find the good content. You may think you're smart. Doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you are. That's gonna work.
Do you find with the long tails that then you also have access to all this other ancillary content that exists along the way, whether it's interviews they had done earlier on, but then you can create a bigger scope of connecting with those audiences?
So now I'm a different animal on that side. Criterion is the one company that can really utilize the ancillary product. To me, there's a place for the ancillary, and it's called YouTube. That's what it's for. But if you have a following by a cast member or something, yes, then you want to use that in tweet. So Marlo Thomas, I work with the show That Girl, if you remember That Girl, and it's just, it really is a wonderful show. And every Thursday is Retro Thursday, so Marlo every Thursday shoots out a picture of her in one of the stills, or hairdo, or outfit, and I just watch the thousands and thousands of fans. And it's available on the platforms, and I've seen the correlation of what that does to it out there. And it's just a sweet, and that's long tail, but it's higher long tail. It's just consistent, and everyone would overlook it. I'm like, you know what? It's a good show.
Okay, I bought that series and I'm addicted to it. So I need to
Thank
know,
you.
what did you do on that show? That's like one of my absolute favorites.
That's great. That girl. She was the first it girl of TV where it was before Mary Tyler Moore, Rhoda, all that, and she literally, as I remember, she studied in the UK for a while about fashion, and she brought it to the flavor of the show, and it's just a wonderful show. It really is great. 5 seasons on Amazon and Google.
What did you do on the show?
What did I do?
Yeah.
I acquired it.
Pardon?
I acquired it.
Oh, I thought you meant that you also worked on it or something.
No, I'm a big proponent of no.
Okay. Hello, for an intern or something.
No. No, but I look for little hidden gems like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I'll praise Criterion all the time because Criterion really is the default of what it is, finding those gems, and they do the best job. And then historically wise, I worked with Criterion in the early days when they were at Image Entertainment doing the hard goods product, so I know them very well, and we love Criterion. So you try to emulate them a little bit, but there's a different animal. You know, everyone has their own views on things. So I look for certain things that I know within the marketplace will work.
Yeah.
And it goes for any type of content. I mean, it's not just classic TV. Indigenous content, if the theme is proper and you know where the audience is, then you find the platform to go to. But the riddle is, just because you have something doesn't mean it should be released. That's one riddle. You still have to look at it. And not everything needs to be released on every platform. So you need to be cognizant of who you're working with and what they're looking to do to keep the maximum value of the product going forward.
Can you talk about in our conversation, you talked about some examples of something you try, like your strategy of figuring out whether something's going to take or not, or the funny unpredictability of things. Like I think there was a Pride.
Oh, no, I have a web series. My first web series was called Pride the Series.
Yeah.
And it was on Vimeo, and I asked them to take it down. I wanted to reconfigure it, so we put it up on Amazon. I put it up Amazon for transactional. And I just wanted to put it on transactional. I just wanted to see if there was an audience. We priced it 99 cents an episode, I think $7.99 for each season, and there are only 6 episodes a season, or 8 episodes a season, and just wanted there. And all of a sudden, the filmmakers are getting feedback from New York, because it's more of a soap opera. But why is this available on Prime? Why do you need to watch it? It should be free. And I'm like, nope. And they kept, oh, Mitch, what do I say? How do I deal with this? I'm like, let it be. Like, well, what do you mean? I don't know how to answer. I'm like, let it be. I'm doing this for a reason. I want them upset. Like, I'm pushing because, oh, well, everything should be available to the consumer. Stop. Yeah, in one contest, it should be available to the consumer. But you know what? If you want to watch it, you pay. If you don't want to watch it, you wait. That's life. But you can make it available, which is fine. And so we set a date to put it up on Amazon Prime subscription. And I told them what the date was going to be. We've seeded it out there enough. And they go, okay, I go, tell your friends, it's on Prime now for subscription. And first week comes, I'm like, ugh, maybe I'm wrong. Second week, I'm like, oh, all right, I guess I'm not that smart. And then the third week starts going, 4th week, 5th week. And now all of a sudden, the conversation is there. Now we have more people talking, want to get involved with the producer and director. And I'm like, great, that's what we wanted. I wanted that data to see that there really was an audience. And that's what I try to find in different platforms. You try to find, is there a real audience, but there's patience and there's cost. So how do you minimize the cost so that you can take those chances instead of going, wow, I spent so much money to do this and now I'm in the hole. No, minimize that. Try and figure it out. But be patient also. Digital is patient. I have a film that has been up digitally for a year, and the past 2 months just exploded. You don't know. It's like, when is the audience mature enough to get to that point to find it? And then it's the social media communication of stumbling and watching, and then all of a sudden, you know what, it is a nice film. They finally have found it. But patience. That's the one thing that a lot of distributors and other companies don't have. They've moved on. Oh, you know, it's the first 2 months, didn't make it, just move on. No. So you need to look at who you're going to work with, figure out, you just want it up. If you just want it up there, we can tell you 15 different companies to just put everything up everywhere. If you want somebody that wants to champion and work with you and try and help your vision, that's a different animal. So then it's to understand, what questions do we ask everybody? You know, what history do they have? I always tell everyone that speaks to me, "Did you look me up?" And I don't like the FBI, but just, did you look me up? I do. I just do a background check just to see, am I who I am within the space? I want them to be comfortable with what it is and never sign a blank thank you. And if somebody's so desperate to sign, walk away. You know, that's the one thing I've learned. Oh, we'll take that deal. Oof, okay.
And I think as well as looking you up, that goes back to maybe talking to some other people who worked with you. So again, back to relationships.
Always.
What about languages?
Sorry.
Languages.
Languages, so that's the two wild cards of digital now are localized language and ratings. It's a problem because the cost of creating localized language are extreme. They're very extreme. You can get closed captions, you know, are needed everywhere. You do closed captions regardless. It's just, you don't go, well, no, you do it. You want to bite that right now and not have to worry about it down the line. So that's done. You have multiple files for that. But localized language, you're going, oh, I want French or Spanish or Portuguese. You better quantify that the numbers justify it. And right now, they're not justifying it. That's the problem. So how do you find a more cost-effective solution? But then you go, okay, I did the language, but oh, I also need a rating. So like you have English language for Australia, but you also need a rating now for Australia. Well, that's a problem. So same thing with the Digital EMA, my trade organization. How do you figure out an easy enough solution? Because an R might be true only an X somewhere, and a PG might be a G. Everyone's inconsistent around the world. But how do you find those few territories that you work closely with? So digital is wonderful, but it's also lots of resistance in the market to do certain things.
As a commercial person, pay flat rate, that costs money each of those rates.
Oh,
As a festival,
yeah.
we do it, but we get to do it for free because we're cultural, whatever.
Yep.
But commercial, every single rating, wherever it's going.
And that's just localized subtitles. That's not local language. Now you're tripling that or more. So it's just it's insane.
Google Translate can't embed something.
No, but as a filmmaker, when you are getting something translated, I just recommend that you actually make sure you have someone really validate the translation.
That's right.
It's especially if you're coming from an indigenous language, because often then people are watching your content and they say, "Oh, what did you think about the film?" And they're like, "I don't," like it's so poorly translated that it's your content, so there has to be you have to own it a bit more, and that's where I think you're right in terms of controlling.
So that's where Netflix has really stepped it up, where they have the translators going out. They're doing that. So, I mean, Netflix was very smart in their launch. They launched in their 180 plus territories at CES 2 years ago, but then they also have a team of translators out there and their consistency around the globe. And the other part of what they try, so the other part is the rights that you grant to a platform as well. Whereas some platforms look for world, and you may acquire world rights, but sometimes you just acquire US and Canada, you may acquire all English speaking. So you've got to be cognizant of that and what the deal would be when you negotiate. And there's lots of variables, but there's no negative to any of it. It's all positive. It'll be going forward.
So as filmmakers, when you're engaging with distributors and working out the terms, the deals, and things like that, it's important to ask questions to find out what is in the contract, again, without signing it blank, but also to understand, because there's lots of terms, and they're going to be different for each platform and each specific project. You know, so you should be aware of what you're signing away, basically, the rights that you're giving away for exploitation.
Wouldn't you guys all recommend that we have entertainment lawyers look at any contract that we're going to sign first? It seems like it's very complicated. Like, I'm afraid to sign anything or look at anything. It's so complex.
I since I've been doing this for so long, I'm not a lawyer, but the gentleman who is my attorney, who I helped train in a way into what to be looking out for in the digital space, when I created my agreement, I wanted it as short as possible. Because I wanted pointed and short. It's like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're taking, this is where we're going, this is what I need from you, thank you.
Okay.
I mean, I want it simple because it should be simple. In the DVD world, different animal, because you have titles that may be on a shelf, and now it's going to take months to get that off the shelf. You're legally contracted to get that down, whereas in the digital space, there's really a timeline where they're like, oh, within 5 business days, we will take it down. Or so you're covered a little bit more. So a lot of the old school contracts deal with the true home video world, not the digital world. No, I mean,
we're the same. We keep our contracts really short and in really plain language, but often a filmmaker will say, I'm going to have a lawyer look over this, and definitely would encourage that, but we also try and keep the contracts super simple.
but it's also the conversation with who you're going to work with. I mean, there's still got to be an understanding. It's like, I will do, for instance, I do exclusive. If I acquire something, I acquire the exclusive rights. That does not mean I'm not open to working with you on platform. That's, oh, Mitch, I can do it, great. You know what, that's going to help us, go do it. And that's a agreement between us that they know. And if I were to go back on that, that's a different animal. But I don't. It's like, I want what's best for the filmmaker. Because what's best for the filmmaker will help me. So I don't care. But there's the other companies that, no, it's exclusive and we're not going there. And our agreement says that we're only going to one platform, and that's what we're going to do.
We are getting advice via our film commission as filmmakers, to be agile and to be building our own personal brand as opposed to our film's brand.
As a filmmaker?
Yeah, as a filmmaker. So, and Taika Waititi being the perfect example for us, who's very active on various social media platforms and has a great personal brand. Do you guys feel that that's become a critical part of our pathways now?
I think yes, absolutely. I think that the more you can use social media and build a brand around yourself as a filmmaker, especially in the early stages of your career, then perhaps as you're getting a little bit more, I'm looking at like the Safdie brothers, for example, amazing filmmakers who had a strong social media presence and have had a number of films that have been smaller films, and now their new film, Good Time, is being put out through A24, and A24 distributor who do an amazing job of marketing their filmmakers. So they're now kind of taking over and creating this very kind of cool brand around that film. So I think if you start out kind of doing that early on, it almost makes you more attractive to distributors, film festivals. If you have your own personal brand, then they can kind of, some of the work's already been done for them, if that makes sense.
So the bottom line is, old days you would get an advance and you're done with the film. These days, you're never done. It's your film. It's your baby. If you choose to not be involved in it, you're going to get the results. You have to be involved no matter who you license it to. It's your film, regardless. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Future is branding like the A24, which is a great company. But no, I tell everyone, it's your baby. No matter what, it's always your baby. Make sure you take care of your baby.
But you're saying, like, get started, but you could start at any point. You're on your 5th film. There's a way that you can connect people to the past, it's not like you're starting from scratch if you're already a filmmaker that's had 4 or 5 films. Use that and really think about a way to, if you like my latest thing, hey, I did this other thing. Do you know of anyone that's built that thing and they're kind of already at a certain point in their short career and exploiting that kind of power?
Well, digital's the future.
Okay, now we're getting on.
No, I mean, a filmmaker who I'm sure you know, Jennifer Reeder, Jason Ryle works with, she does an amazing job of staying connected with her audience via social media, and it's like every time you're not reinventing the wheel, you have this audience that you're constantly talking to. Even if you don't have a new film out, you're like, look where this film just played, or look where, look at this little thing. And I think being a good storyteller is so important. And then kind of what I was referring to with A24 and other distributors is they see not only a great film, but they see a filmmaker who has a strong brand and is a captivating storyteller, and they're like able to take on board not only the film, but also a pre-existing audience who support and will be a community for that film.
But always make sure of a call to action. You talk about your film, well, great, that's wonderful. How are they going to get it? So links are most important. Just always, oh, my film is available on.
And the date and the time.
What's your experience in terms of suggesting then social channels? Because often when people go into the fray, like I have to be on everything, and that's not necessarily where they're strong. It's sort of, digital is also fail fast, change, adapt. So if you have any sort of review, where you kind of find what your platform is, how you tell your story. Some people, Instagram is where they need to be, versus other people are long-form storytellers on Facebook. Do you have any sort of insights or examples?
Find basics. Always do basics. If you do basics, then you're covering it. So that goes down to Facebook. That goes down to creating a little YouTube channel. It does do the basics. Yeah, I mean, just the basics. And it is kind of painful to manage them, but once you get into the rhythm, it's easy. When I started Stadium, I had people doing this all for me. I'm like, I can do this. Oh, the agony of going through it to create the look that I wanted, and talking to my friends at YouTube, and like, they're killing me. How do I do this? But once it gets going, it's clean. People appreciate it. You start getting a lot of social interaction back, and just interconnect everything as well. So there's your YouTube, connect to your Facebook, to your Twitter. So it's like, so you're one-stop shop instead of like, well, let me do it on here, and oh, now I got to go here, and I got to go here, and Instagram there. But it all depends on the age demographic as well, who uses what. Today, not tomorrow. I don't know what's coming.
But yeah, that's a great point. Have sort of your whole community in a place where you can easily contact them. Don't funnel people to different places. Like, I think we talked about this yesterday, Tim. Maybe don't create a new Twitter account every time you have a new film. Just have a strong following for your Twitter account or your filmmaker Twitter account so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
I think that was a thing as a younger filmmaker, not that I'm super old, but which was something to learn about. Yeah, you don't need to make like a 10 Facebook pages. You have 10 films. You can make one and then create a hub, right, where all of your things are feeding into or coming from. So people aren't. It's not scattered, right? It's like a river that's diverted into many little streams. Right. And then the other thing is too, because digital is constantly evolving and changing. If you're trying to engage. Again, it's kind of like trying out different strategies. If you're trying to engage and it's not working, you can try something else. It's not like you're done, you walk away, it's over. It's, then you re-engage, you try to, take another swing at it, see how it works out. And then it may be just like, okay, I tried Instagram and it's just not working, and maybe my audience isn't there, or on Snapchat, or, all the new things that will be announced tomorrow, and come out of thin air.
But the nice thing about them is that, with the exception of your time, they are basically free. They're free ways to market your film, which is amazing and something that did not exist 15, 20 years ago.
Are you doing anything to expand your audience into regions that perhaps have slow internet connections or high internet costs?
Yes.
Yeah? Do you have any examples?
So we launched recently with a company called iFlix. So iFlix is based out of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and they're the Netflix of Southeast Asia. So there are about 80 countries, Africa, Middle East, all Asian countries, and we put 15 films, another 10 are going up there, and it's not a money player for me right now, it's literally a data play, and I just want to see how it grows and what type of content works within each territory. So that's why you step back, and it's like, not everything is money. A lot of times it's forward-thinking data that you need to make educated decisions for the right content down the line, instead of just blindly going, I got almost catalog, and they go, see you later. So there are things like that. Public libraries was one of the first that we stepped into that, my former company laughed at me. Public libraries? What? And a great audience. You can get a lot of niche content in there. You can get the data that tells you what pockets of the countries they are actually renting from, and that gives you a better purview into what's going on with the bigger platforms. So everything's data driven, and there's a lot of data, but you need to have time to look at it cleanly enough, because it's overwhelming. And no matter how much data you have, it is what it is. You still have to go data and gut. I'm sorry. I'm still part of a gut player. If I have a history of work somewhere and I like to film, we'll find an audience.
Yeah, and we also distribute our films through public libraries as well, through a company called Canopy. And then I think also you make a good point, which is don't assume that you can reach all of your audience through online marketing. Identify your audiences, and if there are groups you want to reach who maybe aren't such heavy internet users or don't have access, then actually be innovative and maybe go into those communities and have events or meet with people. Of course, like the internet's an incredibly useful marketing tool for filmmakers, but it might not be the right tool for your film, or it's not always the only tool for your film.
A good example is like Asuma TV, where in the Arctic they have very high internet costs and low speeds, so they have servers in each community. So even though they're not part of this global digital future, they're still actually having communications and discussions within themselves, and they're producing their own material as well. That kind of seems to be kind of segregated or cut off from the rest of the South, I guess you'd say, or the rest of Canada.
So are they storing the content locally on the servers within each community?
Yeah.
So that's the cable way.
And they compress they compress the data so that it actually flows on the bandwidth that actually exists up north. So that was part of the technology they created, so it becomes a hub so that they can communicate, but also you get such huge data files, which take sometimes days to download.
It can take days to upload a short film up in the Arctic, up to YouTube, but through that system, they're not just consuming media, but they're also producing and sharing as well.
Well, that also goes to the size of the file.
Yeah.
That's what you need a solution for. The size of files has diminished over the past years, which is where you have the same bandwidth or quicker delivery. And you have still the mobile deliveries specifications that started the whole internet world of enjoying videos, and that's still prevalent within Asia. And some of that technology is coming into newer platforms within the States also. The other thing that you need to be aware of is when you talk to somebody about DRM. Everybody know what DRM is? No. Digital rights management, so your content's protected so that if someone were to download it, they can't go, hey, Johnny, I'm going to watch this, and Steve, we're going to watch this as well as Lindsay. So all the platforms that people will work with need to have a digital rights management system. So Netflix and Amazon, and they all protect the content, so it cannot be shared. So it's just another thing to think about when you talk to even if you do deals yourselves with platforms directly, you need to be cognizant because there are platforms out there that don't have protection, and it'll just hurt yourself in the long time.
You were talking earlier about going to public libraries and thinking about how my mind started to work, and I'm thinking about how education is becoming more and more privatized, and as education itself becomes more and more digitized in the online space in terms of using digital tools for teaching. Probably applies more directly to documentary and shorts, I think, in that particular aspect.
And historical films.
Yes, absolutely. But I'm thinking how it's such a green environment. There's lots of people asking about how to use shorts that my business partner's been making. Incredible resource for discussion in the classroom. Incredible just to rip open concepts that people don't want to touch or too scared to. What's the licensing process for that? Is it with individual educators? Is it per school? Is it per region? How does that work? Is it something you guys have touched on yet?
Well, there's 4 companies out there that are doing it right now. There's another company out of St. Louis called Swank that do things like that. But there is Canopy, which is a wonderful company. There's a company called Hoopla. There's a company called Overdrive. There's a company called Alexander Press. And those are the 4 that I know of that are within. But they're all still trying to figure out as well. They're not. They all say they're there, but they're not there. They're all trying to figure it out because it is new. I mean, you've got to look at. I know you probably speak because you work with Canopy longer, and I'm talking to them, but it's a very interesting opportunity out there. But what's the right curriculum? What are the right programs? Who's going to curate that? That's the hardest part to me.
Because we do also offer, within the United States, we offer a .edu discount for Filmstruck for students and educators.
And Filmstruck?
I know we're already taking questions. We're just going to make a formal note before opening the floor for questions. Throw more questions. Don't be shy now.
about just Indigenous, like what, you've been here, just a couple of days, but where do you see that kind of, there's so many different types of stories that also have universal themes and touch on environmental issues or social issues. Where do you see, in your own experience of other films that maybe had similar types of topics or things that have been successful, do you think that maybe some of the content that you've seen here and maybe see if you links after the festival? What is the possibility of
Well, I haven't actually gone to see anything yet, because yesterday I was so busy doing meetings. I'm going to go and see some of the shorts programs this afternoon, so I'm excited about that. I think that, again, it's the internet offers all these opportunities to contextualize that content maybe a little bit more. For example, on Short of the Week, there's always a short piece of writing that accompanies each film, so in some cases I think that could be really useful for some of these films to explain a little bit more about the communities in which they're made, whereas in the past it might not have been possible to offer that context, and just the fact that the internet makes the world a smaller place and allows us to learn so much more about each other's communities and have those dialogues and share this work. So I guess I see it as being hugely positive and hopefully a really great way for more of this work to get out there to a much wider audience.
Like that OTT stuff, the other thing needs to be, like you're mentioning all these other areas and are clearly
the OTT is overwhelming. It's completely overwhelming. Like we had a conversation, I can't remember the number, we had a researcher, and I think she was saying there are 5,000 OTT channels right now. Whereas I knew 2,000, I'm like, 5,000. How do you get through that? That's the problem.
And I think we were discussing before the panel that there's only 5% of people that pay for anything other than Amazon, Netflix, or Hulu. So there's a lot of other companies buying for very small pieces of pie.
Well, they're boutique stores, that's what I look at. The boutique saying they have their audience, and that's wonderful, but how do you keep up with the content that they really need?
And because everyone's cutting the cable cord, people are moving towards a model of building up their own personal portfolio of different streaming services. So hopefully there will be more of a space for these niche services.
Well, the cream will rise to the top, as I always say. And they do, the better ones will.
So
where are you guys at? Because it feels like you guys have the perfect opportunity to actually become this portal for.
I know. Well, I just want to start being a distributor. Or like,
there you go.
I don't know. There's just so much great content. Like, how can we?
You start on.
It's not new thing. We're not doing that.
But you can start on iTunes, like some of the other festivals have.
Well, yes,
other
we do. We have a festival button on there somewhere.
It becomes about, I think, what you talked about is that curation. So to your point, you've already built brands. Now we're going to tell Imaginative what they have to do. But
hire me someone to help.
But I think it's what you've talked about too is that idea of curation. Why do I go to Filmstruck? Because it's curated, and I see the value in that expertise. Even with Netflix, the way that my recommendation engine sometimes to a file works. So it's that,
Every program,
You've
short
got
program,
all the
is a curated
files
program that
sitting
can
on
be
the server over there. You've got all of us makers here that you can video and give context to.
And we've already put them in context in a thematic program where we're like, it's there and ready.
And then you can figure out what the rights are along the way and how do you do it.
Like, upon invitation, little,
do it.
Will you let us be a non-exclusive distributor?
Do it.
But you still need to find an audience. Doesn't matter what you do.
I know.
Nobody
Well,
knows who you are.
It was like, we need to
Doesn't
make
matter.
the story. Every Indigenous film festival should send us there, or we need someone to aggregate all the audiences that are going to each of these festivals. Who's going to see Taika's, the box office there, the online views, the educational. How are some of the films that maybe aren't in some places where it's a documentary, Shirley Chichu's documentary about diabetes, or Dennis Allen's film about firewater. Like, those have an education. How do we find someone to get all those numbers and add them all up? And that's a story that I bring to you that then says, Netflix, how can you say no to all the, don't say there's no numbers. There's numbers, but someone has to aggregate them. And someone needs to pay someone to do it.
We already talked about it at dinner last night. I said that we'll find some way to help you do the research.
Cool.
But I think it's also like someone else, you know, I think a lot of people come to Imaginate are like, we just can't do it all. We want to find other people who can be support to help, you know, another consultant.
Really nice Sammy people.
Yeah.
I think within this room I can find their.
Yeah, we got a little, or have we all, yeah. I think.
See, I'm not letting off the hook.
Right. No, but I'm just so happy you can. We can do that. I know, it's okay. I was like, I'm not going to work. This is my last festival, and I'm like, how can I say no? This is also.
This is your last festival.
What is that?
No. No, a month ago, I was like, I don't know. I was like,
Who's living?
I need a coordinator. You know? I can't be doing the raising the money and picking up pens. I'm picking up pens and putting them on tables.
That is very good. Daniel is
We need
doing
a
a very good job. And we indigenous peoples, we are connected to each other. And we have a film festival. We have a very big film festival in Finland, in Skapukova, 20 years. And and we have been working with Imaginative 17 years. So it's not like we have the network there, and we have.
So in the family, we're all like wanting to help each other be strong.
Yes, we have been in Berlin. We are
It's not
doing
competitive.
big opportunities because we are together with the New Zealand people, Australian, Scandinavian. So it's a big family, and we have everything there. But as we said, we need a little bit more.
It's a big undertaking.
Yeah,
Pent up potential.
Any other burning questions? Burning questions. Smoldering.
I have a recommendation. Okay, so to read the article I'm talking about, you have to go to my website. But I wrote this bomb setting off article for the industry, and I put it on my website. And I circulated it to the industry so that the leaders see it.
What's
to
the
raise
website?
to raise help.
What's the blog?
It's ZOEYS projects with an S.com. But I will tell you how I increased, if you have other artistic skills such as writing, figuring out how to use those, and then I definitely have a website. Absolutely have a website. It's expected. It's always asked for, and it's takes your work to another level of professionalism. So yeah, that's like what I learned from my experience so far. While trying to get money to finish my film that's been sitting there for a long time.
I definitely agree with definitely have a website for all filmmakers.
It's your baby. Take care of your children. I think we have time for one more question, if there is one more question. Or action item. The song. It's short. No.
Well, I'll send you the link of where you can find the glossary for everybody. So you can look at that and the metadata. So it's a good reference to go
I
to.
would love to see that.
So is that metadata also like how a filmmaker can see data? Like,
No, it's literally, you need to think about tags and everything you need. Oh, yeah. It's a guidance of what you need to think about. Director, like the synopsis, how many characters do you need in a long and a short. Just the basics that need to be done.
I think that's such good advice, like having your ready to go, your stills, your file, your synopses, your EPK, like just have all of those pieces so that you can deliver really effectively. That's when filmmakers do that well, when you really appreciate it, and it makes us want to continue working with them.
And tagging is vital. You really have to learn how to tag multiple different things, have people look at your content and talk about all the different ways you can touch. I could make a film about a high heel yellow shoe, but maybe people will like high heel shoes, people will like shoes, people will like yellow. So you have to really think about the tagging. And there are digital experts out there that can help you, and it's not super expensive for them to sort of sit down and do it. Maybe that's, next year we look at bringing someone in that talks about it.
And revisit it. Like I always revisit mine. It's like, it's not working. What's going on? Let's revisit the synopsis. Let's revisit how we're identifying it. Genres. Everything.
I
And that's also helps with identifying groups that you could be reaching out to advocate on your film's behalf.
I'm sorry, are you talking about tagging in terms of on the platforms like Vimeo and YouTube? Or
All of that, well, even in your social, any way you're pushing it out, you want to make sure that underneath you're tagging everything, and then you watch your tags, because sometimes too, something may be blowing up that you don't know, and that word is suddenly bringing people you don't want to be in that space, or you see that that word is actually a good place for you to start putting. So it is your baby, and it is a lot of work, but there are people out there that in a short time can at least help you get on the path, because I know it's overwhelming to be able to know what to do in that space. We certainly try and bring that to kids all the time at HKL.
The difficulty as well is that the method of those types of methods are changing all the time.
And I would think too, word usage in different countries, you know, what is relevant to me and what I use is really different from what you might use. Even between you and I.
Or French film fan comes to, or like from France comes to Quebec, we're like, that is not making me want to see the film. That's not the right word.
There's a translation. There's a problem.
Yeah.
Just one other quick thing from our context. So Anna Dean, who's kind of like our guru in New Zealand, has moved a lot towards direct emailing and partnering with large organisations, often corporate, who have large email databases and who have an alignment with the film, and utilising their databases. Has been the most successful in the last year.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you all for coming and sharing knowledge and asking questions, and thank you guys for talking and giving us all the secrets.
Thank you, and thank you to the festival for inviting us.
Secret sauce.
The last panel's in 27 minutes. Come join us, it'll be a blast. It's a great one to stop with.